The warm golden light poured in through the tall windows of the home mansion living room. Theo lounged on the velvet armchair like a king at rest, but with mischief brewing in his eyes. Leslie groaned as she swatted his hand away. "Yeah, that's mine," she snapped, trying to reclaim her orange juice that the maid just brought, but Theo snatched it, leaning back smugly, taking a long, exaggerated sip. He sighed dramatically. "What is this? Orange juice with 1 drop of vodka? Are you trying to get tipsy over this?" Leslie rolled her eyes. "Says the man who drinks whiskey for breakfast." She scoffed, crossing her arms. "You probably gargle it too." Ezra, seated beside them with a book he wasn't even pretending to read anymore, chuckled under his breath. "You two sound like an old married couple." "Theo are, bro," lazily glancing toward Ezra while Leslie blushed. "You want in on the fun?" "Not if it means babysitting 2 children in adult's body," Ezra quipped, shaking his head with a smile. Theo leaned closer to Leslie with a smug grin, wiggling the juice glass. "I'm just saying you could go viral on TikTok." "Lightweight of the year," girl passed out after sniffing orange juice. Leslie opened her mouth to retort but stopped, watching Theo suddenly freeze, his amused smirk slipping as his eyes fixed on something behind her. "What the?" Theo stood up so quickly the juice sloshed onto the carpet. His gaze was sharp, alert, heart visibly thudding in his chest as he gestured subtly toward the door. Leslie turned just in time to see their parents, Mr. and Mrs. Hong, entering with 2 other people around their age, Mr. and Mrs. Lee. But it wasn't the adults that caused the commotion, it was the girl. A small, timid-looking girl clung to Mr. Lee's side, her hands twisted in his coat, her wide eyes scanning the large room like a frightened deer caught in headlights. She had the aura of someone plucked out of a dream and dropped into the battlefield. Her fingers trembled as she clung tighter, her head lowering. Theo's breath hissed as her eyes briefly met his. Just for a second, just long enough to make his chest clench and his voice still. And then she looked away, swiftly. Ezra stood up, frowning. "What's going on?" he asked, approaching. "Mom, Dad, who are they?" Leslie echoed. "Who's that girl?" Mrs. Hong stepped forward, tears already brimming in her eyes as she grabbed both Ezra and Leslie's hands. "She's your sister," she whispered, voice trembling. "This is wine. Your long-lost sister, Mr. and Mrs. Lee found her. She's been with them all these years." Ezra's brows shot up in disbelief while Leslie gasped, taking a step forward and looking at the girl who kept hiding behind Mr. Lee's arm. Theo tilted his head, his smile returning slowly, the kind that tugged at the corner of his lips as his gaze fixated on the trembling girl. She looked so soft, so innocent. Wine picked out again and caught sight of a gun tucked into one of the guard's waistbands. Her face pale as she pulled on Mr. Lee's sleeve, voice small and stammered, "Let's go back home, Dad, please." Mr. and Mrs. Lee looked down at her, their eyes red with unshed tears. "Wine," Mr. Lee murmured gently. "This is your family, your real family by blood." She shook her head quickly, tears threatening to fall as she turned to Mrs. Lee and clutched her hand desperately. "You're my family, my parents," she whispered. "Did I upset you? Am I a burden to you?" Mrs. Lee let out a soft cry and pulled wine into her arms. "Oh, sweetheart, never. You're our angel, always have been." Mrs. Hong stood quietly, wiping her eyes as her daughter clung to another woman, not sparing her a glance. Mrs. Lee gently curved Wine's face and lifted her chin. "Wine, we always told you the truth, didn't we?" Wine nodded meekly, lips trembling. "See?" Mrs. Lee smiled tearfully. "That's your brother and sister." But Wine's gaze drifted to the guards once more. "There are guns. Why do they have guns? Isn't this a bad place?" Everyone softened instantly. Theo's smirk twitched back onto his lips. She was like a baby rabbit in a den of wolves. "That's for safety, sweetheart. No one will hurt you." Mrs. Hong stepped forward, carefully taking Wine's hand. "You have my hands," she whispered, voice cracking. "You're so beautiful, just like I remembered." Wine blinked at her, unsure, her soft fingers curling slightly in Mrs. Hong's hold. Mr. Hong patted her hand gently and said, "Honey, it's okay if you're not able to accept us. We know this is overwhelming. You can take your time. We have waited 16 years for you. We can still wait for some more time. We'll be patient." She passed him a small smile with a nod of her head, feeling a familiar warmth. Mr. Hong smiled and then turned towards Mr. and Mrs. Lee. "Please have a seat." They took their seats while Leslie propped beside Wine, who seemed to relax slowly. "So, baby sister, I'm Leslie and that's our big brother Ezra the nerd," she said with her usual sunny grin, trying to ease the tension. Ezra passed her a smile. Wine gave him a tiny nod, but her eyes flicked warily toward Theo, who hadn't taken his eyes off her once. "And that's Theo," Leslie added with a teasing grin. "Resident whiskey addict, mafia prince, and certified pain in the butt." Then Leslie sat beside Ezra with a smirk, watching how Wine flinched slightly. She glanced nervously at the gun tucked into his waistband. "He looks dangerous," she whispered under her breath, just loud enough for Leslie to hear. "Like bad guys on TV," Theo snorted. "Ouch." Ezra laughed loudly, clapping Theo's shoulder. "She's got you, man." Theo grinned wider, biting his lower lip with amusement. "Wouldn't be the first time someone said that." Or the last, Leslie quipped with a roll of her eyes. You scare puppies, and maybe she is the only one immune to your charms. Then side-eyed, her lips twitching, but his gaze returned to wine. She peeked at him, but then quickly averted her gaze when she found him staring. I'm the puppy. Wine blinked at the exchange with wide eyes, clearly confused. Puppy? But he has a gun and puppies don't. More like she informed them. Everyone burst out laughing, even Mr. Lee chuckled, patting her head. Ezra grinned. She's cute, like a lost lamb. More like a baby bunny. Then said softly, staring at her with something new in his eyes, a spark apple. She still didn't look at him. Mr. Hung clasped Mr. Lee's hand tightly. Thank you for everything, for raising our daughter like your own. Mr. Lee nodded with watery eyes. She is our daughter, even if we didn't birth her. Mrs. Lee added, Wine is been through a lot. She still gets nightmares. We had found her near our town beside a woman on the roadside who was dead. She seemed to have tortured Wine. She still has some scars on her body. Mr. and Mrs. Hong's heart squeezed while Leslie whispered to Wine, I'm sorry we weren't there for you. Wine shook her head while Tim clenched his jaw. She doesn't like crowds or loud noises. She never attended school and had private tutors, and she refused university. Mr. Lee nodded and continued. She's very timid and very innocent. She hasn't seen much of the world and is grown up in our four walls under the wings of her brothers. Tim gasped dramatically and nudged Ezra with his arm, whispering, Bro, she has brothers, you don't get a chance. Ezra glared at him while Mr. and Mrs. Lee stood to leave and clung to them again, panicking a little. Will you still see me again? She asked, eyes shining with tears. Always. Mrs. Lee promised. You'll always be our little Wine. They hugged her and made their way out. Mr. Hong went to attend a call while Leslie leaned towards Wine with a smirk. Wine, let me tell you something. He narrowed his eyes at her suspiciously. You know this dangerous bad guy. He drinks whiskey in breakfast. Wine gasped with wide eyes. Really? Leslie vigorously nodded while Tim gritted his teeth and threw a cushion at her, but she dodged with a giggle. Mrs. Hong shook her head and said to Leslie, All right enough, Leslie. Take Wine to the room and let her rest. I'll send the maid to bring her something to eat, she said with a smile, pinching Wine's cheek. She shyly lowered her head, cheeks crimson, Tim's breath hissed. You're so cute, Wine. Ezra smacked the back of Tim's head, whispering, Eyes of my innocent baby sister. Tim glared at him before rolling his eyes. Too late, things have twisted dangerously. Leslie took Wine's soft hand gently. Come on, baby bunny. Does he really drink whiskey in breakfast? She whispered, pointing at Tim, who groaned, letting out a long sigh as Wine passed. His smile unfurling into something dreamlike, a hand running through his hair. She's really something, he murmured. Wine glanced at him from the corner of her eyes, shy, curious, before disappearing with Leslie. Ezra leaned in, whispering with a smile. Stop staring like you have already lost your soul. Tim didn't even deny it, not just soul but everything. He muttered, eyes still on the space where she stood. That girl just shook the world of my heart. 2 days later, Wine stepped into the living room nervously at the call of Mrs. Hong, her hands tugged at the hem of her soft blue cardigan, then sat on the couch, legs crossed, casually sipping from a glass of water with an unreadable expression. Leslie lounged beside him, tossing grapes into her mouth while Ezra sat a little away, flipping through a magazine but not really reading. Mrs. Hong's eyes lit up upon seeing Wine. Sweetheart, come in. We were waiting for you. Wine stepped closer, slowly. Eyes flickering from one person to the next, her gaze flitted over Ezra like he was made of an air, not sparing him even a glance, making his shoulders stiffen. We have decided to throw a welcome party for you, Mrs. Hong said brightly. And you'll go shopping with Leslie for a dress. Wine blinked. Party, she stammered. Do we have to? I mean, I don't really like crowds. That make my tummy feel weird and my hands get all sweaty. Everyone paused. Then a round of soft chuckles broke the silence. You're adorable, Leslie giggled, patting her arm. Mrs. Hong smiled gently. Wine, darling, you belong to a mafia family now. You'll have to grow used to this life. Be strong. Wine tilted her head. But does being strong mean liking parties and people and sparkling shoes that pinch your toes? I mean, that's not necessary. That made everyone laugh again, including Tim, who choked slightly on his drink. Wine's lips trembled. You're all laughing at me, she mumbled, looking down, heart glimmering in her white, teary eyes. Instantly, Leslie wrapped her arms around her. No. We are laughing because you're so cute. Not at you, dummy. Mrs. Hong quickly patted her back. Of course not, sweetheart. We are just not used to someone so pure. Wine peeked up shyly, cheeks flushed, biting her lip. You're like a human cupcake, Leslie whispered dramatically, making Wine let out a tiny giggle. Her blush deepened. All right, enough of the mush. Mrs. Hong clapped her hands. Go shopping, don't waste time. I'll come too. Ezra suddenly said, standing up, then stretched lazily. Well, if everyone's going, I guess I'll join the party. Wine's eyes widened slightly. But I don't even know how to shop. What if it's too expensive? I should stay back. Tim snorted, almost doubling over. This girl, he muttered under his breath, a crooked grin forming on his lips. Ezra smiled softly, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. You're coming. Leslie grinned, grabbing Wine's hand and dragging her toward the car. The drive to the mall was silent. Wine's wide eyes were fixed on tall buildings. She could feel Tim's burning gaze through the rear view mirror, but she ignored it. The moment they stepped into the glimmering luxury mall, Wine's eyes went wide, her head darting side to side like a curious fawn. The polished floors reflected the lights like mirrors, and the designer brands lined every corner. "Why is everything so shiny?" she whispered. "Because this is where rich people cry after looking at the price tags," Leslie said smugly, one chuckle walking beside her while Them and Ezra walked behind them. Them nudged Ezra with his elbow. "Why the long face?" Ezra sighed. "She doesn't even look at me then. She won't speak to me. It's like I don't exist. I missed her so much and now." He cut off, clenching his jaw. Them patted his shoulder. "Give her time. She's adjusting to a world where people carry guns in their socks." Ezra nodded but didn't smile. Then Them turned smirking as he approached Wine, who was staring at the mannequin like it was about to move while Leslie went to take a call. "So, little mouse," he said in a low, velvety voice, "you are the lost princess of Hongs." Wine jumped, nearly dropping her little purse. "I'm not a mouse or a princess," she stammered, eyes wide. "No," Them leaned in, voice teasing. "Then why do you look like one?" She stepped back, nervously whispering, "You're scaring me." He laughed, running a hand through his hair. "Let me reintroduce myself. I'm Kim Them, ruthless mafia king." He leaned down to her, her eyes got even bigger. "But boys and girls shouldn't stand too close. It's inappropriate." Them burst out laughing. "What are you, a nun?" Just then, Ezra appeared and stood between them. "Don't bully her," he snapped. "Me bully her." He raised his hands dramatically. "She looks like she might cry if I blink too fast." One looked away, biting her lower lip. Ezra turned to her. "Come on, Wine, let's go find you a dress." As they walked off, Leslie appeared beside him and grabbed his hand. "Come on, you menace. Stop scaring my baby sister." And glanced at their hand with a frown and tried jerking away, but Leslie just dragged him toward the shop behind Ezra and Wine. Wine looked at the dresses confusingly. Ezra picked out one for her. "Try this one," Ezra said, holding up a soft peach gown. Wine tilted her head. It's really pretty, but it's probably more expensive than my whole childhood." "Wine," he said softly, "you don't have to worry about that." Leslie returned with a glittery red dress. "What about this? Sparkles galore." Wine blinked. "It looks like a disco ball." Them cackled. "Well, at least she's honest." Leslie gave him a mock glare. "It's called fashion, peasant." Wine tilted her head. "Fashion is shiny and uncomfortable." Everyone laughed again, then held up a sleek black gown. "This one's nice." Wine blushed furiously at the slit and backless gown. "Nice? I think I would rather wear a curtain. That's too revealing." Leslie doubled over. "A curtain." Ezra grinned and pointed to another pastel gown. "What about this? You'd look like a fairy." Wine's eyes sparkled. "I like it. It's soft and it has sleeves and no scary cuts." She took the dress and disappeared into the changing room. Ezra looked quietly pleased. Leslie pouted. She rejected all our pics, Them sulked, and she picked Ezra's. Wine returned in the dress, beaming. "It has pockets." Everyone stared at her, then burst out laughing again. "Pockets are important," Them said seriously, lips twitching. "I like dresses with pockets," Wine said proudly. "They make me feel like I have secrets." "You're such a mystery, little mouse," Them said softly. She blinked up at him. "I'm not a mouse, I'm a girl," he chuckled. "Right, a girl who thinks shopping is a survival sport." She really giggled for the first time in days. Them's laughter faded slightly as he stared at her, stunned. That sound was pure magic. They made their way out when Leslie asked Wine, "Do mafia people go shopping too? Like, do you keep your guns in the fitting rooms?" Leslie cracked up. "Only if we are bored," Wine gasped. "What if I accidentally take a dress with a gun in the pocket? I didn't check it." "Then you'll officially become one of us," Them grinned. "I don't want to," she whispered. "I just want soft things and cookies." They all laughed again. Ezra looked at her warmly. "Don't worry, we'll fill your room with cookies and no guns," she asked hopefully. "We'll try." He winked, and for the first time Wine smiled back. A tiny, unsure smile, but one that made Them's heart beat just a little faster. She was really something. Party day. The Hong estate was glowing tonight. Every chandelier lit, every table arranged with perfection, and every guest dressed to impress. But amidst the sparkle and music, one particular girl stood out like a porcelain doll, misplaced in a world of gold and steel. Wine stepped out of the room, walking slowly in her pastel gown that shimmered like stardust under the lights. Her soft curls framed her face, holding a flower that by the beautician who called her the gentlest soul she had ever touched. Leslie walked beside her, radiant in her dark red gown, yet the attention subtly shifted to Wine. Her timid gaze, the way she clutched Leslie's hand for courage, her slightly wobbly steps in heel, it was endearing in most unexpected way. Ezra, Mr. and Mrs. Hong were waiting at the bottom of the stairs when Wine descended, her soft fingers pinched the hem of her gown nervously. "My dear, you look like a dream," Mrs. Hong whispered, hand on her heart. Mr. Hong chuckled. "No, she looks like our very own little princess." His words were genuine, and Wine's teary eyes reflected it. She stumbled forward and hugged him tightly, surprising everyone, including herself. Mr. Hong blinked before wrapping his arms around her gently. "Well, now, that was the best compliment of the night." Mrs. Hong and Leslie joined in, laughing warmly, creating a family sandwich. Ezra smiled, the corner of his eyes crinkling, but his gaze lingered longer than the rest. Wine pulled back with a soft sniffle. "I have never worn heels this high before. I feel like a newborn deer." Everyone laughed again. "You'll be fine, darling," Mrs. Hong cooed, brushing her cheek. "Now come, let's introduce you to our world." The introductions began, polite smiles and bows, formal greetings. Mrs. Hong glowed with pride as she led Wine through the room, hand on her back protectively. Then came the Kim family. Mrs. Kim, regal as ever, approached with Adira by her side. "Wine, dear, this is Tam's mother, Mrs. Kim, and this is his sister, Adira." Wine bowed politely, greeting them. "And this is Wine, our lost princess." Mrs. Hong's voice was filled with love and affection, while at the mention of them, Wine's heart skipped a beat. She had been avoiding him these days. "So this is the young lady," Mrs. Kim said, giving Wine a once over. "Stunning, dear. Very elegant." Adira eyed dryly before her attention quickly diverted to Leslie, who had just joined. Their dynamic was tight-knit, familiar. Adira nudged Leslie playfully. "You and them are always in sync. You're like a pair carved with the same stone." Leslie blushed deeply while Adira laughed, continuing. "Seriously, just get married already. What are you both waiting for?" Wine stood beside them, a soft smile forced on her lips as that odd ache returned to her chest. It was subtle but strange and new. She quietly stepped away, her fingers trailed along the edge of the nearest pillar as she moved to the quieter part of the room, blinking at the lights. That's when a warm breeze coasted her ear. Little mouse. Wine flinched and gasped as Thane's smooth voice poured into her like melted chocolate. "You look sinfully innocent tonight." She turned sharply, tripping on her heel, but his arms caught her effortlessly. Her back was flushed against his firm chest and her heart was going haywire. "Careful," he murmured, one arm wrapped around her waist from behind and the other holding her hand. "You'll cause a scandal like this." Wine's lips parted as she stammered, trying to get out of his grip. "You're too close, it's not appropriate." He leaned close, lips brushing the shell of her ear. "Do you always look at people like they'll bite you?" "I might though, just warning you." Wine got out of his hold and turned to face him. I don't like biting," she muttered, blinking furiously, then chuckled, stepping close to her. "You talk like you walked out of historical drama, all sweet and chaste. Are you secretly a princess?" "No," she squeaked. "I was just raised to speak politely. You're too loud." "I'm loud," he repeated, laughing. "You're fun, I like you already." He brushed his hand against her arm. Wine blushed furiously. She tried to push his hand from her arm and whispered, "That's bad touch." He stepped back instantly, hands up. "Wow, sorry. You're something else, little mouse." She tried to move past him, but he caught her wrist again, more gently this time. "Why are you avoiding me?" His tone softened, she looked away. "Because you always come close, and you'll be my brother-in-law." "Who said that nonsense?" he asked, frowning. "The whole family ships you and only." She mumbled, he sighed, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. "They joke. I had told them. Leslie's just a friend." Wine bit her lower lip, her eyes widened when he whispered next. "But I'm in love with this one, my innocent doe-eyed dear." Her heart skipped 3 beats. "What?" "Nothing," he smirked. "Just be careful, little mouse. That dress makes me want to do sinful things." "What?" she squeaked again, clutching her chest. "Like kiss you until you forget your name." His hands pressed on the wall above her head, trapping her, "and make you scream mine." "You're a bad guy," she cried, breathless, pushing his chest. As she darted away, she turned on her heel and kicked his foot with her heel. "Bad guy. You brat," he groaned, laughing despite the pain. She scampered off like a startled bunny. Isra had seen it all, arms crossed, smirking. "Didn't think you'd actually fall for the mouse." He teased and rolled his eyes. "Shut up, only I can call her that," she smiled, little mouse. Isra's expression sobered, don't hurt Leslie. "I have told her again and again, she's a friend. A friend is just a friend." Isra nodded before nudging him again. "You're whipped, you know." "I'll neither confirm nor deny," Thames said, fixing his coat, but then both men froze. Wine's eyes lit up as she ran across the room toward 2 identical boys, one in a navy suit, the other in a black. They smiled softly as she launched into a hug, burying her face in the chest of the boy in black. "Brother, I missed you," she cried. Sam and Isra followed, watching with puzzled expressions. Wine turned to hug the second boy, tears glimmering in her lashes. "I'm so happy you are here." She wrapped her arms around both their arms, like they were her shields. "Come meet everyone." She led them toward her parents while Mr. and Mrs. Lee approached, exchanging warm greetings. Wine smiled brightly, her arms linked with her foster brothers. She was glowing as she introduced them. "Mom, Dad, these are my brothers. He's Jonathan." She pointed at the one in black. "And this is Yair." Isra quietly excused himself and walked outside. Sam clenched his fist, turning away. Inside, Wine scanned the crowd. "Where's brother Isra?" she whispered. "Who?" Jonathan asked. "My older brother here." She smiled fondly. "He's sweet and quiet, but he looks at me like I'm precious and I'm always shy around him. Sounds like someone has a soft spot." Yair teased. "I have 2 families now," she said happily, "and I feel so lucky. Leslie only is so beautiful and kind. Brother Isra is gentle. Then there's you two, my best brothers." "Did you forget us already?" Jonathan chuckled and gasped. "Never. You are my home, my childhood, my lullabies." The boys laughed, pulling her closer again. As she grinned at them, her eyes shining, the camera of the moment caught her surrounded by people who loved her and 2 men watching from opposite corners, whose hearts had never known such softness until they met her. At night, the grand home estate had finally fallen into silence. After hours of glimmering lights, clinking glasses, swirling gowns, and social pleasantries, the lavish party had come to a gentle close. One by one, the guests had departed with smiling farewells, leaving only the family and a few trusted staff behind. Wine stood quietly outside her room, the air in the hallway cool and still. Her dress had long been traded for soft, oversized pajamas, cream-colored with tiny cloud prints on them. Her hair was down and messy from brushing, her face free of makeup. She looked like the embodiment of a sleepy child playing pretend in a castle. Gliding softly down the carpeted corridors in her slippers, she glanced into Leslie's room. The older girl was fast asleep, curled under the thick comforter. One smiled faintly before tiptoeing away, her fingers gently pressing into her palms. She needed coffee, a craving, really. A ritual she hadn't grown out of. 1 cup before bed, always, otherwise the night dragged on endlessly with scattered dreams and tossing sheets. Her bare feet made no sound as she entered the dimly lit kitchen. She paused at the threshold, eyes blinking slowly. Ezra was already there. He stood near the marble counter, his sleeves rolled up, hair tousled slightly, one hand stirring something in a mug while the other reached for the sugar jar. The domesticity of it stunned her for a moment. Ezra, calm, mysterious, aloof, looked oddly peaceful in the gentle kitchen light. She didn't say anything, didn't know if she should. Maybe he didn't want to see her, but then, as if sensing her, Ezra turned. His hand froze mid-air when he saw her. For a heartbeat silence enveloped the kitchen. Just the faint hum of the fridge and ticking wall clock. One opened her mouth and shut it. Her fingers curled into the sleeves of her pajama top, oversized enough that they covered her knuckles. Ezra didn't say anything either. Instead, he simply turned back to the counter and resumed making his coffee. His voice slow but not unkind. If you wanted something, you could have asked, one of the maids. Wine flinched a little, not at his tone, but the reminder that she was being watched noticed. I was craving coffee, she murmured. I can't sleep without it. Ezra paused and then something in his voice softened. Same, she blinked up at him. Really? He looked at her over his shoulder, the corner of his mouth curling slightly. I sleep like a rock only if I have had coffee. Wine's lips curled into a shy smile. That's so weird. Both of us are same. Weird. Ezra turned fully, now facing her with his mug in one hand. Yeah. There was a pause before he motioned with his head. Sit, I'll make yours. Are you sure? She asked, clutching the edge of the counter. I wouldn't offer if I wasn't. So she sat on one of the tall stools, resting her chin on her palm, watching as Ezra moved quietly, efficiently, measuring, pouring, stirring. It was comforting, somehow. This quiet rhythm, this little moment. He handed her the mug, steam curling in soft tendrils. Thank you. She whispered, fingers warming around the ceramic. It smells perfect. Without a word, Ezra picked up his own mug and started walking out toward the living room. After a second of hesitation, Wine followed him like a small, unsure shadow. He settled onto one of the plush sofa. She hesitated again, then quietly sat beside him, not too close, but close enough to feel his presence. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the occasional clink of a spoon and the soft sips of warm coffee. Wine fidgeted, her fingers playing with the hem of her sleeve. Her heart pounded quietly in her chest. She glanced at him, opened her mouth, closed it, then sighed. Can I ask you something? She said softly. Ezra looked at her, curious. She swallowed nervously. Can I call you brother? His brows rose slightly, eyes widening. What did you just say? Wine blinked, her lashes fluttering like moth wings. Brother, she repeated, voice barely above whisper. For a beat, Ezra just stared at her. Then slowly he smiled. Not a smirk, not a ghost of a grin. A genuine boyish smile that reached his eyes. Yeah, he said, voice warm. I would like that. Wine smiled too heartful, but she hesitated. How did you know about my favorite cake? Ezra chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. You really don't remember, do you? She shook her head, hugging the mug to her chest. When you were little, you'd get upset over the silliest things, like if your pigtails were in the same length or if someone else sat in your favorite chair. He laughed fondly. I used to buy you that cake to calm you down. Wine blinked in wonder. Were we close back then? Very, he said, leaning back with a small sigh. You'd cry until I gave you piggyback rides around the house. You were chubby, always tugging on my shirt. You even bit me once when I didn't let you watch cartoons. Her jaw dropped. I did not. You did. He grinned, left a tiny dent on my shoulder. She giggled, cheeks warm. I must have been horrible. You were annoying, he teased. But you were my annoying little sister. One smile slowly faded. She stared down into her coffee, voice quiet. I just remember the kidnapping, she whispered. 2 men and a woman. They used to hit me mercilessly when I cried or asked for food and water. Ezra's expression changed instantly. His jaw clenched, his eyes darkened. That woman was our maid, he said, voice slow and furious. She was part of a gang. They used to steal. When we caught her and pressed charges, she wanted revenge. She knew your school routine, and God knows how she kidnapped you in so much security. Wine's lips trembled. I missed a part of my life. I don't remember anymore. Ezra reached out, gently peeled the coffee from her hands and set it on the table. Then, without asking, he pulled her into a hug. She stiffened in surprise before melting against him, small and fragile in his arms. I'm so sorry, Wine, he murmured into her hair. You didn't deserve that, none of that. Tears slid down her cheeks as she clung to him, but she sniffled. But if I lost a brother, God gave me 2 more. Jonathan and Yael. Ezra smiled, hugging her tighter. Do they treat you well? She nodded against his shoulder, voice muffled. So well, they call me brat sometimes, but they give me the bigger slice of cake. Always walk me home and braid my hair. Ezra laughed. Sounds like you trained them well. Wine pulled back with a pout. I wanted to introduce you today, but you were ignoring me. I wasn't ignoring you, he said, brushing her hair back gently. I just didn't like seeing my baby sister being someone else's sister. She blinked up at him confused. You were different with me, he admitted. Distant like a guest. That hurt. I'm sorry, she whispered. I was shy. I didn't know how to approach you. Ezra let out a soft laugh. You're the same girl who once climbed on my shoulders without warning in the middle of a wedding. One gasped. I did, he nodded. You were bossy and fearless. I'm not fearless now, she mumbled. You're still you, Ezra said gently. But I should have known you need time, and that's okay. They sat quietly again, shoulders brushing. Eventually Ezra stood and ruffled her hair. Come on, let's sleep before you start crying again and ruin my shirt. I don't cry that much, she protested, following him. He gave her a teasing look. Chubby crybaby. Yeah. He laughed as they walked side by side down the hallway. At her room he paused and leaned down to kiss her forehead. Good night, little sister. Good night, brother, she whispered, eyes shining. She stepped into her room, heart a little fuller, soul a little lighter. Somewhere in the soft silence of the night, a part of her lost childhood quietly returned. Few days later, since the day of the party, Wine had been avoiding Theung. At first it was subtle, skipping breakfast if she knew he might be around, staying in her room longer, declining family outings. But as days passed, it turned into a pattern. She didn't understand why, but watching Kim, especially Adira, teasing and shipping Leslie and Theung, stirred something inside her, something uncomfortable and hollow. Mrs. Kim and Adira had been visiting often, chatting warmly with Leslie, even bringing her gifts and old photo albums of Theung. They looked like a family, already in harmony. Wine had overheard whispers, conversations, things that were meant for her ears, talks about Theung as Leslie's wedding. It made her chest tighten inexplicably. She kept brushing the feeling off. What did it matter to her? Theung was different, a bit wild, unpredictable, but oddly reassuring. Still, he hadn't shown up at the mansion for days now, and even though she told herself it was better this way, some quiet part of her kept listening for the sound of his voice, waiting foolishly. Now she sat in the living room, a soft book opened in her lap, her fingers tracing the paper absent-mindedly. Her eyes weren't really reading. The sharp sound of heels made her glance up. Adira had entered the Hong mansion, elegant as ever, her expression full of disinterest. Wang quickly stood bowed politely. Good afternoon. Adira barely returned the courtesy. Her eyes scanned the room. Where is everyone? Wang folded the book quietly and replied, Mom has gone out to meet her friends. Dad and brother are at the office for a meeting. Oni is in her room. Adira smiled. Of course, she is probably dreaming of her perfect future with him. Her voice was sickly sweet with a bite underneath. They're so good together, don't you think? My mother already calls her daughter-in-law. Wang kept her gaze lowered, fingers tightening around the book. Adira tilted her head, her voice turning sharp. You really should stop hanging around him. He's not for someone like you. He needs someone elegant, confident, strong, not some fragile little girl. Wang finally raised her head, her expression unreadable. With all due respect, I wasn't aware I needed your permission to exist in my own home. Adira blinked, clearly not expecting a response. Wang took a step forward, her voice calm but firm. My parents didn't raise me to accept disrespect in silence. I may be soft-spoken, but I'm not weak. Adira's lips parted in surprise, her smugness cracking, and next time, Wang added her gaze unflinching. Choose your words more carefully, this little girl bites. Adira's nostrils flared. You're not as innocent as you pretend. You're cunning. That face hide everything. Wang offered a faint, sweet smile. Maybe I'm just tired of pretending. People like you don't bother me, so please apologize for your behavior just now. Silence fell for a bit. Adira looked speechless. Then she scoffed, muttering a stiff apologies. Before turning on her heel and storming toward Leslie's room, Wine exhaled, finally sitting back, her heartbeat thumping louder than it should. Her eyes returned to her book, but her mind didn't. Minutes later, the sound of the door opening made her heart jolt. Theung stepped inside, phone pressed to his ear. Dressed in his usual crisp dark shirt, sleeves rolled up, jaw sharp with a trace of stubble. The moment she saw him, the room suddenly didn't feel so empty. He ended the call as his eyes landed on her. Wang immediately stood, unsure why, and instinctively turned toward her room. Little mouse. His voice stopped her, gentle and low. She turned slowly, clutching the book against her chest. Yes. He stepped closer, tossing his jacket over the arm of the sofa. Where's Ezra, your parents? In office, she answered softly. Oni is upstairs. Adira went up too. He nodded and sat down on the sofa, his eyes never leaving her. It's been days. Why have you been avoiding me? Wine bit her lip. I didn't mean to. I just thought I should stay away. I didn't want anyone to think I was interfering between you and Oni. He frowned. What? She hesitated. I mean, everyone says you are getting married. You both look close and your family, they adore her. A small sigh escaped his lips. They just joke around. Leslie's a friend, nothing more. They have been saying all these things for a year now, and if someone's been spreading anything else, I think I know who to talk to. Wine blinked. So it's not true. Not even close. He said firmly. She looked down, cheeks still pink. Oh, I just assumed. His lips curled into a small smile. You do that a lot, assuming things without asking me. She pouted slightly. You don't exactly make it easy. Theung laughed under his breath. Fair. Still, you're cute when you sulk. Wine glanced up, startled by the fondness in his tone. He leaned back staring at her like he had been starved for the sight of her. "My little mouse," he said softly, making her blink. "You're what?" "You have been living rent-free in my mind since that day you called me dangerous," he smirked. "My people would be shocked if they saw me now. I have been smiling like an idiot when scratched her neck flustered. You smile anyway." "Not like this," he replied sincerely. "Also, my family wants to invite you for dinner." "Oh, okay." She nodded, unsure what else to say before either of them could speak. Again, a familiar voice rang out. "Wine?" She turned eyes wide. "Zeev." A bright grin lit her face as the maid escorted a young man into the room. She rushed forward and hugged him, startling him before he held her. "I missed you, dumpling," he said, laughing. Then stood slowly, jaw tight, his stare dark as he watched the embrace. Wine pulled back, eyes gleaming. "What are you doing here?" Surprised visit. Couldn't stay away any longer. Just then, Adira and Leslie stepped out. Wine quickly turned. "Only this is Zeev, my only friend, and we were neighbors." Then she smiled at Zeev. "This is Leslie only, my best sister." Thanks lips twitched bitterly at the word only. "And this is Adira." Wine added neutrally before gesturing toward Them. "And that's Them, her brother." Zeev nodded politely while Them barely hid his scowl. "Come sit," Leslie chipped. "Mom and Dad will be here soon." They settled on the couch. Them was about to sit when Leslie locked her arm around his eyes narrowed. "What are you doing?" he whispered. "You have been gone for days." She whispered back, but Them took out his hand from her grip with a scowl. But Leslie still sat close to him. His discomfort was visible. Meanwhile, Them couldn't stop glaring at Zeev, who was leaning toward Wine, whispering something that made her giggle softly. His expression darkened. "You two make a beautiful couple." Adira teased with a false sweetness, motioning toward Them and Leslie. Them stared, turned murderous. "Did anyone ask for your opinion?" Wine looked down, twisting the fabric of her dress. She shook her head. Them had enough. Adira rolled her eyes while he stood abruptly. "I have things to do, I'm leaving," he said coldly, throwing one last glare at Zeev before walking off. Everyone stared stunned. Adira immediately got up. "I'll go with him." She cast a quick look at Wine and Leslie. "Goodbye." Leslie turned to Zeev with a shrug. "He is smooth, don't mind him." Zeev laughed. "I'm used to worse." Wine giggled as he told childhood stories. Leslie leaned and pinched her cheeks.